I'd like to acknowledge that this episode of the Teach New South Wales podcast was recorded on the homelands of the Darug people. I'd like to pay respect to elders past and present and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples listening today. Welcome to the Teach New South Wales podcast, a podcast by teachers for teachers.
I'm Shannon and
I'm Siobhan.
We're so excited to be back on the couch today. Myself, Shannon, and Siobhan joining you. And we also have Linda joining us today. So welcome, Linda.
Thank you for having me.
Linda is a primary school teacher with over 18 years experience. So we're really excited to pick her brain about all things teaching. But she is now the Director of Digital Teaching and Learning. So she'll be joining us here to talk about the support that technology for learning provides. And we'll share some advice to help our pre-service teachers, early career and experienced teachers to create engaging digital classrooms. So thanks for joining us.
My pleasure.
We like to warm up our guests on the couch by doing a little bit of a segment called This or That. So I'm going to ask you to pick your favourite. You can be Switzerland, but if you feel
We don't advise.
Yeah. And we usually like to chime in too. So the first one is Apple or Android?
Apple.
Oh, she didn't even hesitate.
No, as an Apple Watch user.
Yeah,
So
okay.
Once you've gone there, it's impossible to go back.
I agree. It's like, yeah.
Must close those rings.
Must. Yeah.
I understand.
Yeah. Apple as well for me.
I too have fallen victim to the Apple and the Apple Watch saga. I honestly, there's been countless times before bed that I've caught myself having to do star jumps just to close my rings.
Yeah.
And I've just
Extreme measures.
I love it. What about this one? Smartboard or whiteboard?
A combination.
Yeah.
I think, I would have to have a combination. And we know a lot of our teachers like to have both options. We can have our main learning displays, which they're now called not smartboards. They have a whiteboard feature on there, but sometimes it's nice to get a bit more tactile with a old whiteboard marker.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Love a good annotation with the whiteboard marker, but when I'm feeling, a bit not very confident about my handwriting in front of the year sevens, I'll be like, I'm typing all of this out now, so stay tuned.
Love that. Yeah, I'm a mixture of both. There's probably a space and place. I've spoken before on this podcast about my love for OneNote. And I just love how, like, on an interactive whiteboard, I can have all that up and zoom in and out and pick and choose, circle, whatever I need to do.
Yeah.
What about voice notes or sticky notes?
Sticky notes.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think the whole voice note thing, even out of school world, of people leaving you voice recordings instead of a message is almost an insult on my time. Like, why are you doing that to me?
Yeah.
Just send me a message. So sticky notes is what I would go with every time.
I do appreciate the new upgrade from Apple where they actually have a transcript now for all the voice notes.
Oh,
So
see,
you
I don't
can-
know because I don't accept them.
Oh, there you go. I like the boundary that you've set.
Yeah.
It's good.
Linda and I wouldn't be great communication styles. We're quite opposite.
We're all about the voice notes.
Love a voice note. I don't know how I've ended up on this podcast. I just love to chat. No, but I and I have mentioned this actually in previous episodes. At the end of the day, when I was teaching, like when I'd be going around cleaning my room, I would do my
Lesson
registrations. Thank you. Just had a mental blank.
Yeah.
And my evaluations as a voice to text even. So not even a voice note, but then like on OneNote again.
Yeah.
And it would transcribe it. Honestly, a game changer for me.
Yeah.
But space and place for sticky notes as well.
Yep.
Absolutely. And I'd like to place them around my computer, make a real decorative display of reminders.
There's a sense of motivation too when you can like crumple up the sticky note or throw it out because that task has been achieved.
Yeah,
So I do like that.
Instant gratification almost.
Agreed.
All right. Well, let's get down to business. Let's get a bit serious. Linda,
Let's.
tell us about your journey. You've gone from classroom teaching to your current role as a director. Bring us back.
Yeah, I think, I decided really early on I wanted to get into teaching, and sometimes people ask why, and to be totally frank, I'm not really sure why back then, but I had a very fixed mindset. I don't have teachers in my family. I just decided that's what I was doing. And, finished my degree, started working in Mount Druitt, which I absolutely loved. And honestly go out of my way to encourage beginning teachers to do what feels like the hard work, but it's not. It's where great teachers are made when they work in environments that show the full spectrum of different learners and different communities. And from there, I went to the UK. I needed to do a bit of time overseas. And
Traveling the world.
Yeah, traveling Europe and just living, the London life. And I worked at a couple of fantastic schools in East London, which is very much a low socioeconomic area, different accent, but learned a lot about the differences between the systems. And I suppose I think what I learned really quickly is what we do as a system around the whole child and making sure academics is not the only focus for our schools, whereas the schools I got to know, and of course I associated with a lot of teaching friends there as well. Back then, that was early 2000s, mid 2000s. The focus was still very academic over there. There was league tables, and Ofsted was still very, very hard. So I did about 5 years over there. Came back here, obviously, had almost had everything New South Wales related out of my brain. So getting my head back around the curriculum here, taught in a couple of schools, and then kind of set up our family up in the kind of top North Shore part of Sydney, up near Hornsby, and went to a school up there. And in that school, I worked in lots and lots of different roles. I was there for quite some time. So I went there as a classroom teacher, got an assistant principal role there, then had a couple of years as deputy principal. But I think the interesting thing for me being in a school for as long as I was is we must have had, I should have counted, probably 6 principals in that time. So I think as a teacher, the school changes a lot with new leadership.
Of course.
So it wasn't like I was in the same school. At every 2 years it was different with a new leader coming in.
Yeah.
And gosh, learned so much under some remarkable leaders there. And then in the back of 2019, I was having a milestone birthday, and I thought I really need to shake this up and see what I might want to do. A very good friend of mine sent me a job ad, and she said, I think this would be for you. You'd be great at this. And it was for the Principal Education Officer role for the STEM T4L program. And it was one of those very quick, I think I had about 3 days before it closed, and I thought, I'll just throw my hat into the ring. Nothing will come of it. I'll deal with the logistics of how will I commute to the city, how will I manage that, etc. later. And then I had an interview and got the job, and just didn't really ever have an ambition to work in education support. But then I did. And since then, I applied for the director role a couple of years later. So I've been in that role since the end of 2021. And now I'm here talking to you.
Yeah. So had you always had an interest in that STEM area? You mentioned that a friend sent something to you and sort of went, this is a bit of you.
Yeah.
What would have sparked that for her?
Yeah, look, when I, with my work in the UK, that was kind of when smart boards were really started taking off, and everyone that was in education realised the engagement factor, the that multimodal need that lots of our kids required. And the community I was working was really interesting, and we had a really big target to improve engagement, particularly for our boys. So we created a hub with the community and with the kids. That was a learning space designed and tailored for their needs. It was very interactive. There were a lot of smart boards in there. And it was one of those things I built and left. Like, it took a long time to get there. Then when I came back here, I did support the rollout of those interactive displays at a couple of schools that I was working with, or at rather. And I think I learned a lot early about how do you get teachers that have a lot of experience to consider not changing how they teach, but tweaking it ever so slightly, or just maybe reconsidering how they can bring digital in. And I did some things really badly. I was at a couple of schools really asked to help do that, and I could see where I lost some teachers because they thought this is too much too quick. And I think there's something about how do we differentiate for teachers the same way we do in a classroom, and avoid that, okay, everyone sit down in the staff room in the library after school and let's all just listen to the same thing and hope that it resonates and you can adapt. Does that make sense? So I could see early that technology was making a difference to learning for our students. I was very, I suppose, across that research piece of future of work coming and how what we were currently doing probably wasn't going to prepare our kids and the need to
Those
shift.
21st century learning.
Yeah. And I think I seem to just be really interested in that part of education when I was a classroom teacher. So I had the joy and the freedom to dabble in that a little bit at my last school where, a really inspiring principal that I had said, I just want to take you off class for a year and just see how you can support all the teachers. Really big school, so we did need that time. But yeah, I think it just happened by accident. I'm not super technical or I'm not the person that someone says, what cable do I use or can I get Apple TV working at home at all.
Depends on the day.
Yeah, or who's around to help. But I just think there's something that we have a responsibility in my mind that my own children and children in our schools now cannot possibly have the same learning experience I had or you had, and you're much younger than me. We really need to make sure that when they transition to a secondary school, when they transition to university, to TAFE, to skills, to wherever they go next, that they are really well-equipped citizens and that they are prepared to adjust and adapt to whatever technology is around them at that workplace or that learning place. So, yeah, I think that's kind of where that interest really stemmed from.
Yeah, no, you really summarised that well.
Also a part-time comedian.
I love that. We always welcome a joke here, but also integration of technology. I like how you talking about sort of, the students that are in school now, they're the future, and we're living in this digital world, this digital age. So not only do we have to be so mindful of building the capabilities and skills that they have in digital literacy, but also making sure that they're, safe digital citizens as well, which is a whole other piece that we could probably talk for hours on. What would your advice be to teachers, early career, beginning, even current teachers about integrating technology into the classroom?
Yeah, my advice would be to be brave. You can't break it. I think teachers really need to explore, and we'll talk about it more, I'm sure, around what's already out there to help them. But they don't need to create a whole lot of things themselves, but also they don't need to know everything. They absolutely can have a piece of software, a piece of hardware in front of our learners and go, hey, how might we do this together? That's really hard for some teachers to adapt to, but gosh, we see some kids thrive in those environments. The ones that might not be the ones to finish the activity first or to have their hand up first, but they get in to solve a problem with technology. You see a completely different side to them.
Yeah, that perseverance that you see sometimes.
Absolutely.
I'm like, where was that when we were doing the maths problem earlier?
Yeah, for sure. And for many reasons, there's something about just experiment and use your learners as the guide as to how that response goes, but try things more than once because we've all had a lesson, whether it be analog or digital, that at the end of it you go, wow, that was not great, so I'm not going to do that again. Or a lesson you've stopped halfway through and gone, we're going to come back to this tomorrow.
The power of the pivot.
I've often found as well that if you're picking the right tools for your class, like you really have to look at, okay, will my class, do they have the foundational skills to use this in the first place? Have I taken time to actually teach them these skills and not just expected that from them? But I personally think it makes my life easier. Like a lot of my work is automated in that way by using technology, and the engagement levels in the classroom, particularly working with boys, are heightened because they're interested in something. I think I've talked about it time and time again in the podcast, but Minecraft for education. Didn't know anything about it, right? And I saw myself as, fresh to the profession. I know heaps about tech. And then they're like, oh, miss, can we do a lesson with Minecraft? I said, sure, if you're willing to teach me. I wanted to safeguard it, make sure that it wasn't, regular Minecraft and whatever. But yeah, I think that being open to learning from their perspective actually has you in good stead with the students, right? Because they say you're open to, doing your learning in this way. So, yeah.
And I think even with our STEM kits, I was using them in my school before I went and worked on the program. And I remember as clear as anything, I was overseeing stage 2. We had a kit that arrived. I had really experienced teachers who were like, all these boxes and all these things, I don't know how to do it, I don't know how to charge it. And I used to say to the teachers then, I actually want you sitting at the desk doing nothing. Like, let the kids see if they can unbox it, use the learning library, put that up on the board and just see if they can I don't, and tinker away.
It's
like
a
see
huge
if the
part
kids
of
can
it,
figure it out. And I don't ever want a teacher to feel a burden that, I've got to know all the technology before I can use it. You don't.
Yeah.
You'll have, and every school has one teacher champion, has one teacher that knows a stack about technology. Buy them a coffee.
Yeah.
Ask them to borrow some 15 minutes after
Co-teach
school.
even.
Yeah.
Go in and observe their
But every
class.
classroom probably has at least 2 or 3 kids.
Students, I would
that
have
are
like,
absolute naturals.
yeah,
You know.
and it kind of gives them a bit of clout within the class because they'd say, "Oh, where's my tech quiz today? Oh, someone's away. Who's stepping in today?" And they're all like, "Me."
And they're probably not, those kids are probably not
give it a go.
stereotypical, but they're probably not public speakers. They're probably not super academic, but you give them things like that and they will run with it. When we used to have our T4L awards, we had a school that had almost like a genius bar set up like with Apple.
Very cool.
Where at, I think, lunchtime 2 or 3 days a week, teachers and kids could bring some of their technology and see if they could help them fix it.
Oh my goodness, I love
I
that.
love that.
Such a informal leadership that builds just such pride in our kids.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
You actually have really reminded me, like, just talking about, you don't have to be the expert. As a beginning teacher, somewhat, it took me a while to learn that I didn't have to be the expert, or that I just didn't have to have all the knowledge. Like, I think when I stood back and realized, I used to do like hour of code with my year ones, and I'd have some unplugged activities, some plugged activities, etc. And I've long time fan of the STEM Share kits. I'd be on there looking at what I could order for the school. Like, what
Can we
I
circle
book?
back to those soon because I want to know what's in them.
We will. We won't leave you out in the cold, Siobhan, don't worry. Basically, the STEM Share kits were through T4L, and Linda, you can probably talk more to this than I, but I used to go on and have a look at what would be available in my school, and you could book it, I think, term by term at the time.
Yep.
And basically, the kit would get delivered to the school. It would have everything in it that you would need. But I booked these Lego WeDos, and at the time, God, I can't even remember what we were. It was for science. I think we were doing like the life cycle of a frog, and I had this great idea. I was like, we're going to build the frog with the WeDos. Never played with the WeDos in my life, but I was like, you know what? We'll give it a crack. But I thought, actually, I had some very good guidance from a colleague on the same stage as me. She said, start small, do 5 in a group, and group your students and do your hour of code, but like the unplugged, plugged, etc. That was far better than me letting my whole class run wild.
Yep.
And that was a skill that, I really needed that mentorship to understand how to roll that out. But I gave it a crack. And then I had these 6 kids, I think, that were in the group actually. And they became my little experts. And then I was able to like diversify the classroom and like sort of mixed ability, all of them. And it was a great success. And, there were times that there was pieces that were missing and we couldn't understand why it wasn't connecting and why we couldn't code it. But it was that problem solving. And I think we built such a like camaraderie as a class, trying to persevere and figure it out. We went on that learning journey together, and I was very honest with my students at the time. But I think they saw me willing to give it a go, and they felt inspired by that. And I think that's all you can do as a teacher.
And like, no one is suggesting, and I'm not suggesting, that you can go into your classroom and go, I don't know what we're covering with English today. There are so many things you have to know, but technology has to be something that we're brave. And the methodology you talked through about how you integrate it is something we hear all of the time from schools that have used anything around T4L. But also, we've just finished a big piece of work with the rural access gap. We had a digital classroom officer in each of those schools, and that one great teacher who happened to know a little bit about technology was supporting their other teachers through that mentorship. That model is how we know great practice is built and how we can build teacher confidence. We had an academic researcher working on that program with us, and 92% of teachers said it made a profound difference to their confidence using technology. And no one can expect a beginning teacher, an experienced teacher, wherever you are on the journey, to just pull some technology in and cross your fingers. Like and I think that's something that I'm really proud of, how we work as a team in T4L. We know one size doesn't fit. Like a classroom, it doesn't. So we try and have lots of different support mechanisms so that it's not just, attend this PL, and it's not just read this, information sheet. We really want to make it so that teachers can see themselves in how they might do it. And your learners far better than we do. And, the life cycle of a frog using Lego WeDo, might not have worked in the next class you had. It could have been a diabolical disaster.
Yep.
But that's the joy of teaching, is that every group is different. And
Yeah. Oh, and that grouping was strategic at the beginning. Let me tell you.
Yeah.
My first little ones that I thought, I think we can do it together, guys.
yeah.
But if I was like, if I was a Siobhan who hasn't booked a STEM T4L kit before, where do I go now? What's that look like?
Well, I'd be asking why. Look, we have, I think we're currently at about 92% of schools in the state have used a kit.
Wow.
We know our secondary schools are a little bit less likely to book because they often have more equipment and more specialised staff. So that's pretty common. But principals have the ability to book through our learning library. They can also delegate access to another member of staff to book a kit.
Like a technology coordinator.
Yeah, there's about 670 kits available each term.
Fantastic.
Some of those are semesters. So some of our kits and everything we do, it comes from feedback from schools. But a couple of those kits, we heard more and more schools saying to us, could I just have it for another term? We aren't quite finished. And particularly in those big schools, you might want to move your Lego kit to another stage after that, for example. So
Lego's not a 1 hour.
It's
Those Lego WeDos, that's
definitely
not a 1
not.
hour and done.
It's
That hour
not.
of code
It's
went
not
on
at
for
all.
weeks.
Yeah, so you can book through the learning library. We're also we're constantly refreshing and coming up with new kits. We've just released one
Podcasting kit,
which is
really exciting that we're talking on a podcast about a podcasting kit. Siobhan and I could maybe pop on there and learn a thing or two. Really upskill.
we have a lot of schools that have already established podcasts, and in fact we've worked with a lot of those schools to help them build what their profile is going to be like and what equipment they should have. And now this kit really supports a school that says, the methodology behind STEM, which, a couple of great minds pulled together, is that schools often buy great equipment, expensive equipment. They'll have a great teacher in the school that'll use it. That teacher moves on, goes into a cupboard. No one ever sees it again. No one knows how to use it, when to use it. So things like our STEM kits mean that our schools can use it for a term, use it for 2 terms, whatever it may be, and then return it. They don't need to deal with imaging it, updating it, making sure they've got all the pieces. We kind of look after that heavy bit for schools. And podcasting is a great one. Some schools have an ongoing podcast, but also it can be just a period of time where kids want to share their learning or what's happening. It might just be a once-off so building those digital literacy skills through audio is great.
Yeah, even jumping in from a secondary English context, a lot of assessment now it has to be multimodal assessment.
Yeah.
So podcasting is a really great way to build in multimodal assessment, but also have it feel real world to the student.
Absolutely.
If they have that ownership from start to finish, and then they can kind of say, this is my podcast, and I created this, and I suppose they're submitting an assessment task as well. It's fun.
Yeah.
You're building that student voice as well.
Yeah.
And what we don't want huge numbers of teachers going, gee, what technology should I buy for a podcast?
Yeah.
What hosting platform should I put our podcast on? What should I think about with the space I'm using? How will I embed it into teaching and learning? We've done all that thinking, and that's what we try and do with everything, so that a teacher can go, I'm a great teacher. Give me the cliff notes. How do I pull this in? So all of the thinking is done, and that's something that we are very, very proud of.
Yeah. You kind of touched on it there in terms of, doing a lot of the hard lifting for the teachers, heavy lifting for the teachers. What is the mission or the vision of T4L in that respect?
Yeah, so look, the STEM program has a very clear mandate to prepare students for their future.
Yep.
That really is the guiding kind of process behind it. Technology for Learning really focuses on that utilisation of technology. How do we ensure digital adoption with our teachers? Because I think pre-T4L quite some time ago, there was really a view that teachers would just pick up on technology in their spare time. And those teachers that were super keen absolutely did. But there was no, I suppose, guidance from the department with that. And I think we create and we offer a lot of great technology. We have, when we think about our beginning teachers, I know lots of teachers that have come in and they've gone, oh, I didn't know that I had Google Workspaces.
Yeah.
Or I didn't know I had access to OneNote. Should I buy that?
Yeah.
Canva, all the things. So
Even Adobe.
it is making sure that all of the things that we offer can be really well used. And so firstly, that people know they're there, and that they're well used. So that's really what we're aiming for. That wasn't a sharp kind of synopsis of what we aim for.
But I get it. Summarize it. Yeah. So many good things.
Yeah. I suppose we really work hard, and it is that professional learning differentiation as well. You know, what do schools need from us to support their use of technology is our driver. And obviously over the last 3 years, 4 years probably, there's been a real shift, a huge shift. T4L used to do very big whole day face-to-face professional learning in lots of different regional areas and metropolitan Sydney. And we know not only COVID but post-COVID, that's not a thing anymore. We can't have teachers leaving their school for the day en masse to come to events. So that really gave us a little bit of flexibility to go, well, hang on, what might you need? And we sampled a lot of different ways, and we're very fortunate. The T4L community is very tight-knit. They're very honest with us, which we love, and they will tell us when things aren't working, and they'll tell us when things are working, and that's what we are. You know, we're working for them. It's not about what ideas we think is shining and fresh. It's what our schools need.
Yeah, and listening to that feedback is so important as well.
Yeah.
One thing I want to draw attention to, because I'm an avid user, is the little bite-sized videos that you can access on the T4L website around, Microsoft tools or Google Apps. Where did that kind of stem from, like those bite-sized snippets?
Yeah. So that all came from learning from home. We had a very quick ask to support teachers in getting online, to do it very quickly while we had teachers at home. On reflection, we did a remarkable job in moving that along. At the time, it felt like we were
snowed under,
running up a hill backwards.
We all did.
Yeah. And I think we ran some, we had this, I think, a month period where we ran something outrageous, like 120 webinars that went for about an hour, where people could dial in and go, I want to use Google Classroom, I'll come and learn that, or I want to use Teams, OneNote, whatever it is. And as we did that, we're like, okay, but hang on, Siobhan's been to the 1 hour and now she wants to know what to do next. Oh, we didn't plan for that. So
she wants to know more.
Yeah, now
she's so advanced.
Now she wants assignments. Yeah. So we then really realised that if we had it on demand, which to be honest, we didn't do a lot of on demand before COVID. It was very much live webinars you would dial into, or professional learning you would go to, like in the olden days. And we went, well, let's make it on demand so that when teachers have time, they can watch a very quick video and click along, because teachers love to click along to something.
Just give me the links and I'll follow it.
Absolutely. Yeah. They do not have the time or the interest, nor would I, if someone said, come to this live thing when it suits me, watch it all, and then later see if you can remember it all and click along. And we kind of just needed that. One of our challenges in that, though, is, I will say, those products, Microsoft and Google in particular, change every day. They move a button, they do something. Yeah. So we try really hard to keep those things fresh and current, because we know the worst experience is when someone says, it said to click here,
right-hand corner,
and it's not there.
Yeah.
So
liars.
Yeah. So we try really hard to keep those going, but we're having the longer webinars, and when I say longer, I mean 45 minutes, an hour max. And they're for things that we're kind of theming instead. So we're doing parent-teacher interviews, like how will you run those if you're doing video
so
conferencing?
Point in time.
Yeah.
No.
Not just how do you do the video conference, but how do you set it all up?
Right. Yeah.
How do you get the bookings done, all of that. And then later in the year, we're doing things like, we know some schools have really thrived on the virtual celebrations at the end of the year, rather than, some schools don't have a hall big enough, for example, or they have families that are giving feedback saying, we're at work, we can't come in for 6 of these presentation days. So
you've got 3 kids at 3 different schools.
Yeah, that's right. So we're giving that kind of themed support. And we also have a team that, we are very, very keen to help any and everyone with whatever problem they have with technology. So we've just rethought how we can do things. So we've got the short videos, like you said, we've got our longer form, and then we've got our magazines as well.
Differentiated for all members.
We have. Well, that's the joy of having teachers in
I was about to say, where did you pick up that practice from, Linda? Not your classroom, was it?
I think
transferable skills.
We have definitely, I've had the privilege of going into so many schools, meeting and talking with so many principals and their staff, and the team and I know what our schools need. particularly around how we can support them better. Will never be done because technology evolves, obviously, but it definitely is a bit of a brave new world in the last few years about how can we make sure that teachers that picked up things through COVID to support learning from home, which they did a remarkable job at that time. I will say everyone just should be really on reflection going, wow, we got over that. For us, it was really exciting because the people that were on the fence going, do I want to bring technology in? Do I want to know how to use Microsoft tools or Google tools? They kind of had a bit of a, you're going to do that now. That helped us a lot because then we wanted to really keep people engaging with the technology. Some didn't. Some went, actually, I'm done with that. I want to get back to my face-to-face teaching and, change that part of my practice back to what I was doing. That's fine. But we have an awful lot that have stayed in there. The statistics on our use of those platforms is just growing year on year. It
must be so humbling for you when you said you go into schools to actually see the students using a product of you that you and your team have created. I can only imagine that you can see that wide scale, a larger impact that you're making with the T4L resources.
Yeah, it is. And I think our magazines are a bit of a testament to that. We had magazine.t4l for probably a year before learning from home. And then during that learning from home period, I had 2 members of the team who both teachers who said, let's make like a kids magazine with technology, and let's see if we can make it a self-paced learning journey with everything in there that's needed so that if teachers wanted to, they could say, we're just going to work through issue 3 of the magazine and the teacher doesn't, again, need to know any of the, complicated things. And it's a really exciting product. It's something that we now have married in that the T4L magazine for teachers matches the kids one. Most terms, don't hold me to that. So, this term was all about podcasting. So there's the kids version and there's the teacher version. But kids are sharing their work with us with their teacher's permission. They're kind of sending things in for us to review. But
also giving them like a real world as well, which is really
And there's a lot of those real world challenges in there. We've had a really good collaboration with Transport for New South Wales where they pitched a problem that they wanted support from our students with, which was great. And also in those magazines, again, what we do on that same principle of STEM.T4L, we really make sure that, if you've got to register for like a WeVideo license, the information is there. Or like this is how you do it. So you're not then going, well, I can't do it because I don't have access to that. So we've really tried to think through the thinking parts so that teachers can just keep doing great things with their kids.
The education support staff is supporting. I'd like to say,
how do teachers and students access the magazine?
Well, it's a digital magazine, of course, but I was really pressured by my team to print them occasionally. So we do. I've brought you some today.
Goodies.
Because teachers love something they can hold in the staff room. They do have a giant QR code.
What if the Wi-Fi's down, Litta? I've got to have plan B, C, D.
That's a problem to solve. I'll work on the Wi-Fi in my spare time. We do print them, and we do when we're on school visits. The team that are regularly in schools, like every day we've got people in schools. They'll take just 1 or 2 and just leave them on the table because that obviously then shares the whole catalogue. But they're on the T4L website, they're on the Universal Resources Hub, and that's probably where you'll find them.
Yeah.
Or maybe on your staff room table if you've had a visit from a little support team.
Lunch.
Yeah.
Well, actually, I don't know if it was a bit of like, it was the bane of my existence at school. Miss, the internet's not working. The browser says I can't access it. I'm like, did you log in? Did you log in to the DET at NSW, whatever it was? I used to have it on the window, and we were going through the kids T4L magazine one time in class, the students, and one of the boys in my class put his hand up. He's like, did you tell them about this problem, how sometimes we can't get on the Wi-Fi? Because they've told us how we can do it, how to log into the portal. And I was like, it's not just you.
Yeah.
And honestly, across the
but
stage.
all of those things are like
those little things.
We have this expectation that we are going to make 5-6-year-olds that can do that very complicated login, which I will tell you, I've got some very good colleagues at ITD that are working on a K-2 simplified login.
Music to my ears.
I taught kindergarten for nearly 10 years and I have offered someone that's going to do it like Australian of the Year.
Yeah, that's like a 25 minutes to log on.
Yep. So we are looking at making that a more seamless experience. But there's also something real in it where I love a class and a group of kids not when it's critical and they're doing, say, an assessment task in high school, but I love when a Wi-Fi goes down because how often does that happen when we're working now? Yeah. Like I'll be in the office and all of a sudden it'll go down. I'm thinking, oh, what will I do now? And that's just part of living. It's like anything. But yeah, it's a problem.
Preparing that resilience. No, I love it.
Let's just call it resilience building.
Yeah, I like to call it character building as well.
Yep.
All of the above. Well, tell us what would be, we've gone through a lot of resources across the T4L team, but what would be like your go-to resource in the classroom now? You have to pick.
Oh, gosh, that's a really big question. I think this is really broad, but something I'm in more and more conversations about is how does a classroom teacher or a whole school think about how they provision devices across the school or across the classroom? So I think that's kind of one of the first things to consider. All of us have worked in schools where sometimes there's a trolley for stage 2.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's BYOD in our high schools. Sometimes there's a lab. I think that's the bit you've really got to go, well, what actually works with what's here that I can, a beginning teacher is going to walk into a classroom next term, for example, and they can't say, actually, this doesn't work for me. I would like this in my room. So think about what you've got access to first. That's where I'd be going. And making sure that is going to support your type of teaching with technology. For example, if you have a classroom situation where you have access to the trolley 3 hours a week, you really need to think through, we don't want to be spending time with that technology doing non-digital things. So how do we build the week looking that way? But in terms of my go-to, I would absolutely say the STEM T4L kits. I think they are a really safe entry point for teachers, regardless of how digitally mature they may or may not be. And I would use that to avoid that investment of into technology that may not be utilised. Plus, technology moves so fast. So as soon as you buy something, by the time you've unboxed it, new technology is created that will probably supersede it. So let us do that work for you would be my advice.
You mentioned before, Linda, about the Beginning Teacher Tech Guide. So a lot of our listeners are beginning or early career teachers.
Yeah.
So I'd love if you could elaborate on what's involved, where to get it, where to access the Beginning Teacher Tech Guide.
Yeah, so now we're in our second year of a Beginning Teacher Tech Guide. There's a lot of words there, isn't there? We might need an acronym.
The BTTG.
If I called it that, people would go, what?
Oh, honestly, I'm shuddering at another acronym, Linda.
Yeah, look, the T4L team and me and I love beginning teachers. So I'd say welcome to the profession to your beginning teachers first. They've made the right choice. We really are passionate about making sure that when a new teacher comes into our system, that I believe for a beginning teacher, they need to spend their energies on building relationships with their colleagues, getting to know their learners and figuring out what this thing called teaching is and not thinking about all the other things. So we've really drilled right down to basics to this is what the staff portal is.
Yes.
This is where you find it. I think there's even something in there around this is where you might find your pay.
Yeah.
Because these are all expected things. And what we know for sure is that in every school that has a beginning teacher in there, how lucky they are, firstly, but it's taking time for people to sit down and go, oh, just click there and just click there and just click there. And I would much rather, as I'm sure everyone would, that time was spent on, well, how can I get the engagement right with Billy, or how can I adjust that literacy lesson so that it suits blah, and just focusing on the right things. So what we do in the tech guide is we really walk through what's available to you to start off with. So what do we have, I suppose, enterprise agreements with? How do you access them? And then what professional learning is available associated with those products, because a lot of our beginning teachers come out and part of their big goals in that first year is learning about technology more. And again, that lift is done for schools in that if a beginning teacher just follows that process, great. But our other thing with the Beginning Teacher Guide is we've had some interesting feedback that it's not just for beginning teachers, that some of our experienced teachers are like, oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. Or I was doing it a weird way.
Yeah.
Like I might have been, I remember even how we used to use Central and I was accessing Central in this bizarre way.
Yep.
And there was one day that a more experienced teacher was like, what are you doing? Like sitting next to me in the staff room. I was like, what do you mean? I'm just going on Central. And showed me like this way that was like one step versus the 7 I was taking.
Yep.
So,
and that's what we're looking for, right? We want to cut corners where it doesn't count. You know, let's just make that part really simple, but also have our teachers equipped. You know, the department is big. Figuring out who to talk to in your school.
Yeah.
And I always think about those super small schools. I've been at a school that had 6 students. So who might you ask if you're there for one day a week? You know, you've really got to think about what your best use of time is. So we will release it every year. It is absolutely not just for beginning teachers, but we have built it with beginning teachers in mind. But it also has springboarded into a couple of special edition ones that we're working on. We have done one for teacher librarians to really support them in their roles. We have done one for SAS staff so that they are all across all the different admin components that they have on offer as well. And we're about to launch into doing one on assistive technology for SLSOs.
Oh, wonderful.
So they can understand how they can use those different, I suppose, functionalities in those tools to support
like
their
immersive
learners.
readers and things like that,
And we work really closely with the Aboriginal education team, and they're very keen for a special edition for Aboriginal education officers to help them with how they might use technology. So it is really trying to make sure that we're covering off all the personas that we can, but we know that if we can support beginning teachers, A, they'll stay, and B, they'll enjoy it. And that's what we do.
And I think just, having that in a school as part of your induction process, you know, welcome to the school. Here's just in case you need it. I'm not making assumptions on
Absolutely
what you need help with, but his guide is incredible. So, I mean, even handing out to prac students. Prac students have a department login when they go on their placement and are so surprised that they can get access to the Universal Resource Hub and things like that. Just the simple questions. How do I navigate my portal? What are the acronyms on the portal? How do I add a tile to my portal is really important too. I remember starting out in my first year, I'm like, oh, someone mentioned that they have, you know, Canva on their tile. How do I add a tile?
Or even like accessing Canva for education, you know, there's so many, like we've spoken about multitude of times on the podcast, like Minecraft education, like there are just so many tools out there.
And the magazine definitely gives everything in one magazine. I'm nervous it'll be like an encyclopedia soon because it will just get bigger and bigger. But
it's like sounds like a cheat sheet to me. You know, what do I need and what am I looking for? You know, skim through and
I think when I go all the way back to where we started our conversation around things like interactive whiteboards and how I supported teachers with those in my early years of teaching, I used to say to teachers, wait till the kids are out at recess and lunch and then just play with it. Nothing can go wrong. And the magazine's a little bit like that. I don't mind if a teacher is sitting in her RFF going, oh, I'm going to add all the tiles that I want to my portal, or I'm going to get into Canva education and then make sure I know how to get in there next time. And we want all the steps there to support them. So that's what we've done. We will have a new refreshed one for 2025 because obviously there's changes on little things. But that's the joy of having a digital magazine. We can change it in the background if there's something significant.
Oh, wonderful.
And the printed copies are the ones that we have to manage. But
sounds like some real exciting things are up and coming for the T4L team. Is there anything else, any projects or exciting initiatives that are underway that you can tell us about?
Oh, well, in beginning Teacherland, you know, we're working a little bit with how can we do something before the beginner teacher mag. You know, I've been very keen for a while to have something like a little boot camp where keen teachers that are interested, you know, in that early December when they've graduated and they've got a bit of a gap, might want to do some professional learning with technology prior, but also making sure we are building on our networks of teachers. I think that's an area we're really fostering a little bit more in making sure that teachers know where to go to ask questions. For sure, that's really important for us. And make sure that they definitely feel a sense of that shoulder-to-shoulder support because we are education support staff. We don't want to feel like we're just doing things at schools, that we're working with them. For our STEM project, podcasting obviously just released. That's probably the newest thing that
Very
we're
excited
working on.
to check that out.
Yeah, but it's a great time to see where technology's headed and how we can support. But I suppose to any of your listeners and any future guests you have in here, we are very open to feedback. So if someone thinks of something, they go, hey, why aren't they telling us how to do this and whatever, find us, tell us anywhere, anyhow.
How can we find you, Linda?
How can you find me personally?
No, how can we find a T4L team?
Door. No, so T4L, we have our own website. So if you Google T4L, you'll find it. And from there, it will kind of point you anywhere. We do have resources in the Universal Resources Hub. The digital support team, which sits with T4L, is a very small team of non-school-based teaching staff as well. And they have the ability to be booked for professional learning. So quite often if schools get together for staff development days or twilight sessions, we go and support them in those. So
Fantastic.
there are definitely ways you can contact through the T4L site and we'll put you in touch with them.
Yeah.
But other avenues, we have a T4L teacher community.
Is that like a statewide
It's
staff
like
room,
a statewide
or?
staff room.
Is it on Viva Engage?
On Teams.
Or Teams, yeah.
Yep. And then we have T4L on Viva Engage as well. And we also, the other thing that I would think about as well is our news.t4l. That's a newsletter that comes out in week 3, 6 and 9 each term, which is the more technical side. And we have a lot of teachers that are very, very technical. But that gives a lot of, what updates are coming, what changes are being made, that kind of thing. So I would say find the right bits to follow.
Yep.
And also find the right person in your school that's going to help. That's for sure.
Your technology marigold.
Absolutely. Find out what coffee they drink.
Yeah.
Align yourself with them. I
Stay
agree.
close.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today. And thank you, Linda, for joining us. Your wealth of knowledge and experience within the classroom has really inspired me. And I'm so happy to hear how well supported our staff members in the Department of Education are. So thank you for sharing your wisdom.
Thanks for having me.
Until next time, make sure you share this episode with a friend because there's plenty of resources that I'm sure you may not know about or would like to know more about as well. So share, like, comment, subscribe, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to the Teach New South Wales podcast, where we explore the dynamic world of education. Don't forget to follow, like and subscribe to be notified when new episodes become available. You can find us on social media via our handle @TeachNewSouthWales. Until next time, keep learning, keep teaching and keep making a difference. This podcast is produced by the Teach New South Wales team from the New South Wales Department of Education.